Hi folks, I'm just going to show you today about how to make some piping. So I've got some strips. Now these strips are not bias cut. Piping can be bias cut for soft furnishings and for doing edges of quilts and mug rugs, etc. like that. I generally cut them across the piece of the fabric, so you can see there's a selvage there. And I usually cut 1.5 inch strips, which is about just under 4 centimeters. So what we're going to do is make up a piece of piping that has some piping cord in it. And first of all, we need to make sure we've got enough length. So I need to actually join a piece of my piping together, my strips, so I can make my piping. So I'm just basically going to go from corner to corner, just lay my strips so one side's up, so they're face down together, so they're up here, so it's right sides together. Then I'm going to draw a 45-degree angle for me to stitch over. This is a fade out pen, so it disappears pretty quick. And then I'm just going to stitch along this line. And you can see that I've got my join here. Just trim off any of the excess, and I'll trim it back to about a 3/8 seam. There's no set size for this. 3/8 is good, so 3/8, 1 centimeter, and I'm just going to finger press this open. I would normally go to the iron and press it, but being lazy with this, pop a zip foot on. Everyone's zip foot's different. The idea is for us to have a long strip and then put some cord in the middle of it, fold it over so as the edges are even, and then with a zip foot stitch right up against the edge of the cord. Now I can move my needle out a position just so as I can make it a little bit tighter. A longer stitch, and we're just going to sew our length. You can pin or clip these. I usually put 2 fingers forward of the piping just to keep the cord into place and to keep my edges even, and just work through your strip. Make sure that seam stays open in here. Make sure that stays open. Some fabrics which are a little bit thicker, that does cause a little bit of a lump, so you've got to be aware where that's going when you're piping something. If you're going to go near a corner, you try not to have one of those joins on a corner, because it will make the corner of your work a bit bulky. And I'm someone who I never buy pre-made piping. I always make my own, always have. When I was doing my garment work there, everything was piped. We used to pipe lots of necklines and sleeve ends, etc., because it adds a little bit of oomph to a garment. But also, soft furnishings and bags, I love piping. So I've come to the end. Just going to clip my cord off. I'm just using a size 0 or 1 cord. Now the cord is quite free inside that. I haven't caught it, so it's quite free. Now I do one extra step, which not everyone does, but that's fine. Let's put my normal foot back on. Excuse my hands. And I want to just stitch. I like to stitch just 1/2 inch out from the edge. I put the edge of my foot against there, and I just stitch a second row of stitching along my piping. And if you don't have a piping ruler to actually trim this up, you can go ahead and trim on the stitching line, because it is even. So that's 1/2 inch from the edge. So if I was going to want to trim this up, I would just stitch along my stitching line, and then my piping's even, because there's nothing worse than actually having piping which is not even. So let's go back to the table and look at what a piping ruler does. So I've got my piece of piping here. You can see my second row of stitching. So we have a ruler, which is, this one's called the Grooven Piping Trimmer Tool. It's Susan Cleveland's ruler, and they come in different sorts of varieties of things. So there's a ridge along here that you place on your piping. There's a ridge, and that's a 1/2 inch ridge, and with a rotary cutter, with a sharp rotary cutter, I'll go in a different direction. You just work along your piping and just make sure the cord is sitting in the cord is sitting in the groove underneath. There we go, nice even 1/2 inch piping. And I'm using a 1/2 inch piping because we've got 1/2 inch seams around the edge of our blocks and in our bags. So that's how we make piping.